guys, this is my black belt. I've had it for a number of years, and it's made of cotton. It just has the name of my style on one side, has nothing on the other side, doesn't have my name or anything. You can see it's a little worn to reflect that I've been using it for a while. It's kind of a little bit grungy, a bit dirty. It's going slightly orange where I've sweated in it. This is also my black belt. This is a silk belt. They're both from Tokaido in Japan, and this one I've worn maybe a dozen times in 8 or 9 years. Basically it's a nicer quality belt. I don't use this for day-to-day wear. It's very clean and never wash this one either. And what basically I've created there is a personal ritual. The ritual is that I have a symbolic pristine belt that I only use for special occasions, and then I have a day-to-day work belt here that I use just to sweat in the dojo. In a sense, the belt is exactly the same as a dogi, which is a piece of special clothing that I use just for the kind of the dirty work. And that's fine that I choose to create that ritual. Now, I don't I've never washed this belt, but the reason I've never washed it is not because my sensei told me never to wash it. The reason that I've never washed it is simply because I don't want to wear it out by repeated washing. So I never put it in the washing machine, but I take reasonable care of it. I have no particular problems if it falls on the floor. I don't care if somebody else touches it, so long as they're not disrespectful to it, which in a sense would mean that they're being disrespectful to me, then I don't mind. The only reason it would mean they're disrespectful to me is because they know it's my property, just as being disrespectful to your car or something would also be disrespectful to your property. However, in many clubs, the belt has achieved a status that's almost mythical, including mine actually. My sensei and I know some of his superiors have this policy that your belt should never be washed. I recall a grading, I believe it was, where a young child had just received a yellow belt, their first belt, and then they proceeded to spill chocolate milk onto the belt, making it look disgusting. And my sensei was quite stern with the child's parents that he should never wash the belt, even though it had been essentially ruined. And so the poor kid turned up time after time with his belt gradually smelling worse and worse because it was milk that had been spilt on it, all because of this silly ritual that you should never wash your belt. Now, it's very important that you understand the difference between ritual and tradition in karate. Tradition is something such as bowing, which has been done right since the earliest eras of the art, and not just karate, but the martial arts that preceded it as well, right back to the days of the samurai. And it has a very good practical purpose, which is to keep your ego in check and to show humility. Now, a ritual is just some mystical process that has been invented to make something seem more special. It's a bit like superstitious habits that soccer players might have, where they only wear certain socks or certain numbers, and they really are just traditions which have become mystical, and we really have to stay away from mystical thinking in the dojo because it's very much not beneficial. I recall a story about a martial artist that I quite respect, and he was in a competition wearing his black belt, and one of the officials stepped behind him to tuck in a red sash into his belt to denote which side he was fighting. And the martial artist became quite irate and lectured the official about the disrespect of touching his belt. I also remember a fantastic story from Phil Redmond, who runs 24 Fighting Chickens, which is a Shotokan website. He speaks a lot of sense over at that website. He relates a story of an event he was at where there was a belt folded up on the floor on top of somebody's clothes, and Phil in the process of getting to somewhere else in the changing area, stepped over the belt, and the belt's owner, a woman, came up and lectured him terribly about how very disrespectful it was that he stepped over the belt. And as Phil so correctly said, if the belt was that important, it shouldn't have been on the floor in the first place. So belts now have airspace above them. You know, they're their own sovereign nation, and they have a law of verticality where you can't cross. You know, it becomes ridiculous. But you can see very easily how something which starts off as perhaps just a personal opinion moves from opinion to ritual to creed. So you can imagine, for example, that the first person who wore a black belt might have said, this belt is very special to me. And then it gets passed on to somebody else who says, all belts are very special. Then somebody else perhaps says, all belts are very special, so you must treat them in a ritual way. And then that goes on further and further. I'm reminded of the movie Kurobi. And the Kurobi simply means black belt. And the whole movie is about a master who has died and leaving his black belt behind. And the black belt symbolises leadership of his school of karate. And it's a beautiful movie. I thoroughly recommend you watch it if you can. And the movie is basically about a power struggle between the ruthless but effective senior of the club and his counterpart, the much more moral and equally effective, but ultimately flawed, kind of nice guy of the movie. And ultimately, neither of them end up being worthy of the black belt. It goes to somebody much, much weaker. And, I guess the point of the movie is humility is more important than anything else. But again, I think that they kind of completely miss the point, that this whole mysticism of the belt. And you could see a black belt receives, or any belt really receives, undue mystical significance. In Japanese culture, particularly, there is a kind of an anthropomorphization of things in nature, very much part of the Buddhist philosophy, where you give inanimate objects a spirit. And so what happens is that somebody could say, for example, that the spirit of my karate is in my belt. And, it represents my years of training. And then that becomes morphed into my belt holds my spirit. And then that becomes morphed into you must never wash your belt because you'll wash your spirit out, which is kind of the position that my club has. And quite frankly, I find it ridiculous. Now, looking at the history of the belt system is a modern invention. It was started in the 20th century, possibly the late 19th, by Dr. Jigoro Kano, who was the founder of modern judo. Well, the founder of judo. Judo is a sports side of jiu-jitsu. And Jigoro Kano saw a benefit in delineating different levels of experience amongst the students in his dojo. And he borrowed an idea from swimming, where they had different stripes. I'm sure you've seen the same in my school when I was a kid. You used to get different coloured stripes on your swimming trunks. And he took the idea and applied it to karate. And according to some people, the early ranks only denoted from white, and then there was black belt, and then there were levels of black belt. And then after that, colours were introduced. And again, opinions vary on where the colours come from. Some people suggest that Dr. Kano took the colours from the game of Go. Others suggest that one of his senior students travelled Europe and invented the colour system. And there's no absolute certainty about where the colour system came from. People have looked at the colours and theorised, well, what's the symbolism of the colours? Oh, well, red for blood, green for the grass that they rolled around in, and it was just dirty. And the black belt was just a dirty white belt, and a yellow belt was, I don't know what, I wouldn't even want to imagine what that was, but they had symbolism and in some cases an actual purpose why they became different colours with the years passing. And again, I see no evidence for that belief, but it's an idea again, an illustration of the way that mystical thinking and urban legends become entrenched in the ethos of the dojo. So I would just have to say that a belt has no more significance than you choose to give it. I'm quite happy to let my black belt fall on the floor. I'm quite happy for other people to touch my black belt. My black belt is just a piece of cloth. If it got destroyed tomorrow, I wouldn't really shed a tear, because although it's come with me for many years of my journey, it is just a piece of cloth. And the thing that's important about my black belt is the journey that I took, not the piece of material that denotes it. It's a bit like being an explorer and encasing your walking boots in gold or something. It's a bit foolish, because the only thing that gives any value to any experience is the memory of that thing, and not the symbol of that thing, if that makes any sense to you. So I strongly recommend that if you want to wash your black belt, you wash your black belt. Don't take on board other people's made up mysticism and other people's rituals, because those rituals have no logical basis, and they have no traditional basis, because the belt system is, as I said, is only 100 and not even, just over 100 years old. So you can't even say, oh, well, it harks back to the age of the samurai, it's nothing more than an invention designed to combine the expedient of holding your gi closed and the benefit of denoting your progress. It's not mystical at all. You take care.